All right, hey everyone, welcome to the Jazz Piano School Podcast, episode number 52. I'm your host, Brendan Lowe, and thank you so much for joining me. First off, of course, when I go to film a podcast, usually things are happening, right? So if you guys are hearing music in the background, it's coming outside my apartment. I really wanted to do this now because I'm leaving for Boston on Monday, and I wasn't going to be able to film to do the podcast before I left, so I wanted to get it out to you guys, or prepare it rather, so I could get it out to you next Friday. But if you do hear that, it's very faint, I apologize. Anyway, thank you for joining me in this episode. Again, we're getting lots of requests. Different topics are great. You know, I'm getting all these suggestions. Brendan, hey, can you do a topic on this? Can you do a topic on that? That's fantastic. If you guys have ideas or suggestions, there's lots of places to leave comments. You can leave them on the website, jazzpianoschool.com, on the podcast page. I upload all the videos to YouTube. You can leave your suggestions there or your topics of interest there. And it helps me because I don't have to kind of, go back through all the podcasts and say, what haven't we done? What might people like? When you guys are actually telling me what you want, it's fantastic because I can give you what you want. And that's what I'm here for. So in this episode, I am going to be going over how to harmonize melody with jazz chords or chords in general. And a lot of people have asked this, and I completely understand. When I was in college and kind of learning and in the process of starting my career, this was a very difficult thing for me, and eventually it got easier, but there was no kind of sure process that people had. And in today's episode, I'm going to try and help you with that, just the beginning stages, because it can get very complicated. Now, before I get into that, again, we're getting a lot of ratings. I really, really appreciate that. If you guys like the podcast, you can show your appreciation by going to iTunes and rating the podcast 5 stars. I'd really appreciate it. And it helps people discover the podcast when you do that, because it helps its popularity. So all you have to do is click on the 5 stars, and that will give it a 5-star rating. Also, again, we are here to become the #1 resource and jazz hub for jazz piano education. And this is why I founded Jazz Piano School, to give everyone a direct path, relieve some of the frustration of how do I play this, what do I do? And usually, unfortunately, the path that most people take is all over the place. You're learning from one resource, you're learning from another resource, a teacher here, a teacher there. You might learn some voicings, but you never really know how it all connects. And I wanted to deliver a jazz piano education site that people could join and learn from, that gave them step-by-step information to get better and just help people learn jazz piano. That's it. Learn how to play jazz piano to the best of their ability with ease. Okay? So here we go. I'm going to get into this episode. So I am going to be demonstrating today with Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Okay? And I'll probably need to do more than one demonstration in maybe some upcoming podcasts. I can revisit it. But in order to reharm melodies, right, you need to know a lot about harmony and theory. Okay, that's just a big thing, right? Without the knowledge of harmony and theory, you're not going to be able to do this very well. So just a slight disclaimer. Now, when I reharm tunes or melodies, a lot of the times the notes will lend themselves to certain chords, okay? So, by the way, you can get the transcription of what I play, the reharm of Twinkle, at jazzpianoschool.com/podcast52. I didn't have a download practice reference for the last episode, but I do for this one. jazzpianoschool.com/podcast52, and you can get the transcription for Twinkle, all right? So again, most tunes lend themselves to chords. Now, we're in the key of C. Okay, that should tell you something, right? Let's start out by using diatonic chords. If you don't know what that is, go back and listen to some of the podcasts, because it's in there. Diatonic chords from the key of C. All right, so we have 7 chords we can use from. Now, again, if you want to get fancy, we're going to try and do that a little bit later, but let's keep it simple for now, all right? Let's just try and add the chords that sound like they fit with the melody. So here's the melody, right? We all know this, right? Okay? Very, very simple melody. But how do we arrange it for jazz? Well, again, jazz mostly comes from seventh chords. So a nice thing to do is not just harmonize with triads, right? Here's my C major triad. Usually the melody will start on the root or, the tonic, okay? So that's why I'm playing a C triad. Now again, if we want to spice this up with jazz chords, all we have to do is simply add a major 7 or a 6 because that's a tonic diatonic chord to the 1. There's my 6 chord, there's my 7, okay? And again, the melody is down here. If I was playing this in the key of F, right, I might do this, voice it this way, but since I'm down here, I'm going to be trying to keep most of my harmonies up here, otherwise it's going to get too muddy down here. Okay? So once we play the first note and then it changes, we have to kind of listen to our ear, right? Now we could stay on C for that. We could actually stay on C for the entire tune, right? But that wouldn't be much fun. But when the melody changes, usually that's going to signify a change in harmony. So now when we go to G, right, how do we pick what chord is next? Well, we can do this a lot of the times by trial and error, but as you get used to this, you're going to hear certain patterns, right, or progression movements. Now, the root and the fifth are very similar to C. Now, without just staying on C, right, one way I can create movement through the progression when my melody is so similar, right, it doesn't really change off of the chord tones, is I can move my bass note to the third, right? So instead of going, I can go, right? You hear that? Now already that gives it some flavor, it gives it some richness. Okay? So with that movement, since the melody's not moving too much, I'm going to choose to use my bass note. So I'm just playing a C over E, and I could play C major over E, or C6 over E. All those voicings are going to give it a different harmonic texture or characteristic to the tune, right? So it's up to you. Whatever sound you enjoy, this is where harmonizing melodies becomes fun because you can choose what you want to do. I personally enjoy just the C major triad over the E instead of having the 6 in there or the 7. I mean, that sounds great too. I would use that definitely with a different style maybe. It depends, but I'm going to go with the C over E, okay? Now, the melody goes off of one of our 3 chord tones of our tonic, right? So obviously you can kind of hear that's going to be a switch in harmony as well. And now, again, one of the biggest questions is how do I choose what chord fits? Well, we want to think, again, we're thinking diatonically. So we have 7 chords in the key of C. C, the 2, the 3, the 4, 5, 6, and 7. So we've just used the 1, we've used the 3, and we use the 4, right? Now again, you have to think about progressions. This is where your knowledge of theory, harmony and theory really comes into play because progressions tend to move and melodies tend to move in a direction of common progressions. Now a common progression, 1 to 3, right, is a common progression. Now from the 3, right, usually the 3 can go to the 6, tends to go to the 6 a lot, so that might work. We could try an A minor chord there. That sounds a little strange, right? I mean, it can still work. One thing I want to say before I continue is any chord can work. You can harmonize any melody with any chord, okay? It just depends on how you play it, but let's try a different chord. So the 3, right, we could go to the 2. That kind of sounds okay, right? The 2 chord. The 2 chord usually tends to lead to where? The 5, right? Because the common progression in jazz is 2, 5, 1. Or, so there's our 5, right? I tried the 2 leading to the 5. I don't really like that. It doesn't sound like Twinkle, you know? I'm trying to place easy chords that fit in the tune right now before I get all fancy. So let's try a different one. The 7 minor 7 flat 5. So the B minor 7 might work. That's pretty out there, right? So we only have one more chord we haven't tried, and that's the 4. And if we think about a common progression, 1, 3, 4, like if we look at the bass motion, that makes sense, right? That might work as well. So let's try it. That sounds great, right? And already, right, immediately you can tell that 3rd in there with the 4 sounds great. Okay, so that progression really works. So I'm going to stick with that. Now where do we go? So there's the melody, and the melody kind of has, you know, it goes down. So again, we always have to look at the melody because that's where we're harmonizing from. So what note, or excuse me, what chord could this G be a part of? It could be a part of the A minor. So we could go, that's kind of, you know, that might work. I might choose that. Some of you might like that. If you want to choose to harmonize that chord with the G, because that would be the 7th of the A minor, that works. You can definitely do that. The G would be the 11, right? An extension of the D minor. So let's try that. I like that. That sounds great. It's kind of different. It doesn't really sound like Twinkle, that progression. Oh, my alarm's going off here. I'm doing laundry while I'm filming a podcast while I'm doing laundry. Here we go. So, right, that sounds good. We could go, excuse me. Right, we could just stay on the F, or we could go, what haven't I done? 5, right? So again, the process here, guys, to explain it to you is I'm just trying different chords that might fit. Right? Now it takes time to hear the melody and hear the correct progression. This will come from more ear training types of things, noticing melodies and how they fit with progressions, okay? So that's more of an ear training thing, but you can use any reharm you want. It just takes, you know, just playing around. So I'm gonna go back down to my C over E, right? Because that's the same chord we used to get to the F, right? So I'm playing the 1 over 3. That sounds great. And this is more of the chord that would fit with Twinkle. Okay, now we have F, right? So again, we're looking at our bass motion, right? It's going down, right? So now our next note is F. The melody goes. Now if the melody is continuing down, where would our bass motion probably continue? Downward, right? With the melody. So we have, let's go to D minor with the F, right? And then we can keep going down. So see how that happened? So all I did was I took the melody, and it seemed as the melody was going down here, that's a common progression. I've played that progression a lot, and when you work on playing progressions, you're gonna hear those types of movements. So as I hear the melody, I know the melody so well in my head, I know it's moving down. Already that progression is in my head too, and I can hear that it fits with the melody. Right, so. Now we have the D, right? Again, so since we've moved off of the tonic chord tones, we end on the C, so what's a common resolution that might go from the D to the tonic, right? 5 to 1. Okay, so I'll add that G7 in there, which is the 5 going to the 1. I'm using a G7 dominant here, right? So we've just harmonized the first little bit of Twinkle. Okay, let's keep going. I'll throw some different chords in later. So now we have this. So now, to keep it simple, we can simply harmonize the melody the same way, right? Excuse me. I got lost now. Right? So we can start on the 1 here. Now there's actually a lot of different ways we can go here. So with this, you can hear you kind of get to the 5 on that last tone. So I might put the 5 chord there. We can start with the 1. There's a lot of different chords we can take. We can start with that 1. We can go up. Right, 5 sus. So some that sounds very simple to me, right? That would be a nice simple fit for Twinkle. You could pedal. Right? Again, this is where you have a lot of different options because the melody is very generic. It can fit over a lot of things. We could go, let's try something else. Again, we don't have to start on the 1. We could start on the 6 maybe. That might work. So we just came down from A minor. We could switch it up a little. We could go A minor. Maybe the 7 minor 7 flat 5. Again, guys, I'm using all diatonic chords here, and I'm just placing the melody with a diatonic chord of my choice. So let's start in the F major. Let's try that. So whatever you choose, it really doesn't matter, but obviously you can kind of see the process here. So let's stick with the simple process. And again, this can be a dominant chord or a sus. And then we'd repeat the same thing we started with, right? So now, how do we switch this up? But again, this comes from knowledge of theory, okay? Adding different harmonies in. So we went to the 3rd. You can choose any chord you want that might work with the melody note, right? So if I wanted to go, so this A here, right? I could make, you want to choose the melody and where it would fit in the context of a chord. So this could be the sharp 11 of an E flat 7. Now that really sticks out, right? But it could still work in some sort of manner, right? So I could harmonize every note of the melody with a different chord and work that note into a chord somehow, right? We could go to an F sharp minor 7, being the E being the 7, right? Again, it sounds very out, you know? Let me see, D minor, D flat minor, right? So however and again, I'm not saying, but this is up to you. This is the process. So what I recommend is slowly adding chords that might work. Don't reharm every single note. Play your simple reharm first that we just did, then add maybe 1 or 2 chords. Right? There's a B flat 7 with the 13 on top. Then go back to our regular progression. Right? So and then we could go to B flat sus maybe. So there's certain spots like the 1s or the ends of phrases that you can choose to kind of slip a reharm in. And again, the flat 7 sus is just a common progression. So the study of harmony so you can know where to slip these chords in is really important, right? You know, that's another progression that doesn't really resolve, but it goes up to the A minor, and then again. So what I did there, right? B flat 7. What did I do? A minor. A flat sharp 11. So again, I'm just choosing chords and movements that fit with the melody. So because the melody's moving down, I choose a bass motion that moves down as well, right? That way it kind of fits with my reharm. Okay, but again, you don't have to do all the notes being reharmed. That sounds nice, I could use that. Woo, I like that. And again, I'm doing trial and error right now, right? So I picked a F over, the melody note. So this is F major over A. This is an A flat augmented triad. When you have a focal point, like I know I want to land on my 5, so we choose paths to get to our 5 so it doesn't sound completely out, right? We start with our main chord, the tonic. So here's our melody. So between these 4 notes, I start on the 1 and I want to get to the 5. Now choose your path. It's like a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? Choose your adventure. It doesn't matter. Just choose whatever chord you want. We could go, right? Let me see. Where could we go now? Any of those chords work in the middle as long as you have the tonics in the 5s. Like those are the anchors in your harmony. And when you throw your reharms in the middle with the movements, at least you keep the foundational structure of those reharms going, right? So far I like this one the best. Excuse me. Oh no, I changed it up, right? Oh crap, I forgot what I did now. Oh yeah, there we go. You can do flat 9 sus. You can go to F major 7 here. D7. I wouldn't, you know, with the melody there, I mean, that's pretty out with your 3rd and the sus, but it could work. Again, I don't particularly, I would try a different one. This is almost like composing, right? D flat sharp 11, right? Let me see. Okay, so, I mean, there's not, when you get used to harmonic movements, depending upon the melody, you want to start with that initial simple structure, right, that we played. Right, start with your bass motion, simple. Once you gain the foundational structure of the tune, whatever you're trying to reharm, then start to move outside the box with some of those movements. Now again, the F going down to the B flat is a nice movement because it's a 5-to-1 progression. That won't work, right? Going up. Again, you're just testing them out, okay? So hopefully this helps. Start with simple melodies, right? Twinkle, Twinkle. Hymns, if you know any hymns or have hymnals from church, those are really good for having your ear learn the harmonic movement, because hymns, right, are written out, okay? But if you want to take those hymns and make them your own, you need to be able to find the chords that work with those melodies. Usually the chords are just written out, so if you know how to read music, you'll read the hymn, but you won't exactly know the progressions that are happening unless you're really involved, in the harmony and theory, because then you can write your chords in that you're actually playing with the hymn. Then from those chords, you can start to switch it up. right? Based on what you hear with the melody. Maybe I'll do that next time too. Start with Twinkle though, right? See what you come up with. Write an arrangement for yourself, harmonizing the melody of Twinkle, right? And even if you want to, send them to me, and I'll post them actually on the bottom of the blog. I'll post links to your arrangement of Twinkle. It's a really great exercise. I used to have to do this exercise a lot. So choose Twinkle, and we'll see, and we'll come up with all the different arrangements that people come up with, because there's hundreds, I mean, it's infinite. You can go whatever direction you want, and obviously try and keep some of the foundation. Don't make it too out where you can't really hear the structure of the tune anymore, but throw in some different types of chords that is within your knowledge, right? Don't go too far outside of your knowledge base, okay? And again, if you want to kind of all add in at jazzpianoschool.com/podcast 52, I'll add in the different movements I was using and I personally liked. I'll give you guys my personal favorite arrangement that I was playing with just now. I'll take the movements that I like the best, and you can download that full arrangement there. So thanks for joining me, guys. I really appreciate it, and hopefully this was helpful. Again, it's a really tricky concept, so start simple, and I'll be able to expand on this for everyone a little bit later, but start with this. Send me your arrangements, and we'll take it from there. All right? Happy practicing.